Okay, I am. Excellent. Okay, so we are already recording. Excellent. All right, so let us begin. Today's workshop, we are going to be talking about zero textbook cost options. And the objectives of the workshop, by the end of this workshop, you should be able to distinguish between ZTC, zero textbook cost, and OER, because there is actually a difference. Many of you may already be aware of this, but for those that are new to the ZTC OER world, I want to make sure that I kind of just do a really quick high level distinction of the two. And then we're going to talk about the importance of accessibility when we are selecting materials, especially those that are open. Because when we're working with publishers, the accessibility may not be so much of a concern, but when we get into open stuff, accessibility can become an issue. And then I'll identify some of the more mainstream zero textbook cost options that are the easiest to integrate into a class because they're already kind of set up for that, and that are already mostly accessible. So those are our goals for today. If at any point you have questions, feel free to raise your hand or post those in the chat. Or if I'm going too fast on one of my demos, let me know that I need to slow down, and I will do so. All right, so let's start off first with what is zero textbook cost versus open educational resources. So zero textbook cost basically means, and Andy, correct me if I'm wrong, that students don't have to put out any money in order to access the learning resources for the course. So it's free for students. Open educational resources can be free, but well, they usually are free, but they also have these additional features that go along with them. And those include the ability to remix, meaning you can select resources from multiple authors, for example, and put those together to create your own version of an electronic text. They also have the ability to revise. So if you don't like something that's in that chapter, you can actually change it, either change the wording so that it makes more sense to students, change the definitions, change the images, all that stuff. You can also reuse the content. So that means that once you have created your own version of the OER, you are free to reuse it. And really this, some have licenses for non-commercial use, but because we're educational, we're pretty much okay there with regards to reuse. Retain, which means students can retain a copy of that in perpetuity, as can you, and to redistribute. So you have the right to share those resources with others, either the original content, your revisions, remixes, or whatever combination thereof. So while open is clearly probably the most flexible option, there are some really good resources out there that are free, but not necessarily open. And so that's part of the reason why this workshop is ZTC accessibility rather than OER accessibility. So hopefully that clarification makes a little bit of sense. I included this slide in here because open resources, there's actually a whole bunch of different licenses or Creative Commons licenses, and I am most definitely not the expert on Creative Commons licenses here. That would be Andy. But this table really helped me understand the various licensing that we're going to run across in the ZTC options that we have, that I'm going to talk about today, because quite a few of them have either CCC BY, meaning you have to attribute, but otherwise you can do what you want with it, or they have a non-commercial, so it's restricted to like educational purposes, or non-derivative ND restriction, which means you can't actually modify them. For example, Khan Academy, great resource, but it's a CC BY ND. You're not allowed to really remix that stuff. Okay. So I'm going to move on now to talking about accessibility. And I know I'm blazing through this, but I want to make sure that we have enough time to talk about the actual resources and how to get them into your Canvas course. So as you know, I'm a big accessibility cheerleader on campus. When we are selecting our resources for courses, whether they be publisher resources or free and open resources or ones that we are creating ourselves, that we're just going to have in Canvas, they all need to be accessible. And the main goal here is to make sure that whatever content we are using is equally useful to users with a range of abilities. So there's nothing in the content that is going to get in the way of a student's access to that material. So they should be able to access the material independently and without difficulty. There's a whole list of ways that we can ensure that our content is accessible to students. And I added a link here to the WCAG Web Content Accessibility Guidelines checklist. We're actually in version 2.1 now, but most websites that we're going to be looking at are going to be following the WCAG 2.0 requirements. And it talks about how you structure your web pages or how the content is structured, captions, transcripts for audio, alt text, keyboard navigability, etc. Okay. So when you are looking for accessibility resources, when you are looking for accessible resources, there are some things that you should be looking for when you're reviewing your ZTC or OER content. There are a couple of the library accessibility guides that I've linked to here. And this PowerPoint presentation, the link to it is, oh my gosh, I have lost it for a moment here. I'll make sure that I can get that to you guys in the chat right now so you can access these links later. Okay. So these links are available in the presentation, which I just shared with you. And the CRC one, Andy and I worked on together. Andy did the bulk of the creation of resources. And my gosh, this was a long time ago because I looked at it and it has D2L stuff on it. So there's some really great cheat sheets and links for accessibility resources from the CRC one. Butte College also has an excellent accessibility guide. This particular link here goes to their ZTC/OER initiative guide that includes a tab on accessibility. So this goes to the tab from that, but their whole guide is great. So those are some resources that you can reference going forward. Let's see. Yes, the CRC guide is a bit outdated, but the tips are still definitely useful. That was from Andy in the chat. Okay, so when you are on one of these OER repositories, or you're looking for OER on maybe some of the more mainstream ones that I'm going to mention today, there are some ways that you can check to see if they do follow accessibility standards. The easiest one to look for is the accessibility statement. That's often in the support area of that particular provider. And the accessibility statement should state that the resources that are posted there adhere to the WCAG 2.0 standards for web accessibility, that the content is keyboard navigable. And this is particularly important for simulation type stuff, because what I found is that there's some really awesome biology simulations out there, but they're not keyboard navigable, meaning that there's some content hidden in the simulation that the student can't actually access unless they're using a mouse. And that becomes problematic because it excludes that particular set of users. If you can't find an accessibility statement, you can always reach out to their support team or their rep and ask them for their accessibility statement or what their commitment to accessibility is. But again, when we're dealing with open content, if you're searching for stuff on OER Commons or Merlot or some of the other really excellent OER repositories out there, because instructors are posting this content themselves, there's no guarantee that that content is accessible unless the instructor is actually familiar with accessibility and remediated their own documents. So if you're not sure, if you're downloading like a document, a PDF or something like that from OER Commons, you're definitely going to want to check that for accessibility. And that's a whole other workshop. So we'll talk about that in another workshop. Today we're going to focus on existing larger repositories of free and open content that is already vetted as accessible. Okay, so those include LibreTexts, OpenStax. I have a heck of a time saying LibreTexts. I don't know why that is. OpenStax, Pressbooks, Lumen Learning, Khan Academy, and then of course the CRC library resources. So these repositories all include free options. There is a free option. A couple of them have a paid version, but there is a free version, but not all are open. So I'll try to point that out as we're going through, but these are the main ones. I'm guessing that some of these may already be familiar to you. How could we be where we are today without knowing about Khan Academy, right? I'm sure we've all used Khan Academy or had students come to us saying, I watched this Khan Academy video. But there are, so Khan Academy is on there, but there are some other options that aren't quite as convoluted to access as the Khan Academy. So I'm going to start with LibreTexts because they are open and they have by far the most flexibility as far as putting content in Canvas and then also the ability to remix and revise. So LibreTexts was actually started by Delmar Larson, who is a chemistry professor at UC Davis. And it has, through the assistance from a variety of grants, it has just exploded. And they now have approximately 50 million student users a year, I think. I mean, it's wild. So the platform is perhaps maybe the least slick of the websites that we're going to be accessing in terms of like overall appearance, but it does allow for instructors to build and author their own textbooks and then also customize and remix existing textbooks. And then of course, it allows for various sharing options. So I'm a really big fan of LibreText. So what I'd like to do is for each of these things, I'm just going to show you a brief demo, and the demos are going to get shorter as we go because some of the features are about the same. So I will bring us up first to LibreCommons, and I'm going to post that in the chat in case you want to follow along with me. So here we are in the LibreCommons area. I'm a big fan of going to the library section first because it gives you kind of divides up the stuff. And, because, me and I am biology, I'm going to go to the biology one because I'm most familiar with their repositories. And then from here, I just did an OER grant last year and I located something from human biology. And so when we select this, what it will do, it will bring us to some options that fall in there. They're called bookshelves. But if you wanted to look at some of the other bookshelves that are available within biology, you just use the bookshelves link, and then there's these various categories, and you can select one from there. There is also this toolbar on the left-hand side, and you'll notice that there is a link for libraries. And anytime you click that, it will create a tray that pops out that you can use to navigate and use shortcuts on the site. Okay, so I'm going to go to human biology. And I'm going to select this excellent book that was developed or remixed by Suzanne Joachim, who is the sort of biology OER guru, and I believe she's also serving on the CVC OERI work group. You guys have probably attended one of her workshops if you're a STEM person. Okay, so now that we're in the actual textbook, there are some things that that we can look at while we're in here. So the first thing is accessibility, right? I talked about the importance of accessibility. So let's go into the first chapter of this textbook, and we're going to see the sections of the book. Let's just pick the first one here. Okay, so here we have our page. Now, what is accessible about this page? Well, I can actually run an accessibility checker to make sure that it's accessible, but I already know that it is as far as the ability to navigate with a screen reader. So there are a couple of other options that we can do. There's this readability panel here. We can select this. We can adjust the text size depending on, whether you want narrower margins or wider margins. There's a dark mode feature. I'm a big fan of the dark mode features. I use dark mode whenever I can because it reduces eye fatigue. But there are even options for different contrast levels depending on a user's vision, or in some cases, certain learning disabilities. Using different colors can help clue into stuff. So the readability feature is pretty nice here. So that's our accessibility feature. Let's see if I can get it to go away. There we go. Okay, then there is the download option. So I'm going to go through a couple of these tools up here. So the download option, I'm going to actually go back to the book here and see if I can find the download button, because that is very helpful. Here it is. Okay, so notice that there's this blue download button when I'm on the landing page for the textbook. And you can select downloads anytime, but it's going to take you to their entire library, and then you have to go sifting through. So find the book you like, and then if you want to download the entire thing in one big file, you can, and then you can import it into your LMS, in this case, Canvas. So selecting this button will create a workflow where you will be prompted to download it to your computer, and then you can then import that into your LMS as a course file import. So here I am in my LibreText module, and if I go to settings, I can, oops, this is probably, there we go. I can import course content, and then I can select my course file using I think it's as a common cartridge 1.x package. And that's going to allow me to choose my file. We're not going to go through that part, but you just basically, you choose the .imscc file and select import, and it will import all of the content. It's really fabulous. And then once you've done that, this is what it looks like. Well, that's the template. That's not what it looks like. Somewhere down here, we will find the textbook. Okay, so what it does is it creates a module in Canvas for each chapter, and then each chapter is a link, or each section of the chapter is a link. And so it's basically just the page you just saw embedded within Canvas. And it still has all the readability features. You can navigate within the page, or you can use next to proceed from section to section. So that is what we would refer to as the LTI, or the Learning Tool Integration. So we have integrated the LibreText into Canvas, and you can customize these modules. You can add any additional content that you want around the modules that are already built. It's going to take a minute for it to load here. But if I wanted to add an overview page, or a page with like my own videos, my own lecture videos, I can do that. I can also delete any of these pages that aren't useful. Add assignments to the module, all using the add feature. So you can choose, all the other things that you'd like to add to the module that has already been created with the LibreText. Now, this isn't something that you would want to do with an actual course that you have students in. I don't advise that. I strongly encourage that if you want to import a LibreText or an OpenStax entire course, that you request a development shell. Select the help menu, and then use this link, request a development course, to get yourself a sandbox, an empty shell with no students that you can import your content in, customize it the way you want to, and then you can export that to other classes or copy it to your live classes. Okay, let's see if there's anything else that I wanted to demonstrate with LibreText. There is not. That pretty much covers it. Were there any questions about LibreText before I move on to OpenStax? Oh yes, Andy, you can have as many development shells as you want. I think I have 4. No, I don't see any hands raised. So I'm going to assume that I'm good to go on to OpenStax. So I'm not going to go through with any of these repositories. I'm not going to go through and tell you like all of the different stuff for like which disciplines and stuff. I see your question, Coach. I'll get to you in just a second. I'll leave it to you to conduct your search to determine whether there is content there that's relevant to you. But what I can tell you is that LibreTexts and OpenStax both have introductory level stuff like non-majors, and then they also have higher level major sequence level courses that are in there. So there are lots of options. Okay. Oh, Coach asked, how do you request a shell? So let me go back into Canvas. To request a development shell from anywhere in Canvas, you will be using the help icon that is at the bottom of the global navigation menu. This will cause a little menu to pop out, and then you will see the link here for requesting a development course. So when you select that, that is going to open a form in a new tab that you can enter your information into, and within 24 hours, you will receive an invitation to your dev shell in your Los Rios email account inbox. Okay, cool. All righty, let's go back to our presentation. So now OpenStax. This is actually where OpenStax is where I started my ZTC journey. I've been using OpenStax concepts of biology in my GE biology courses for, well, I've been teaching lately, but it's been quite a while, at least 5 years of instruction where I was using OpenStax. And, just like with LibreTexts, or with publisher content, there's going to be stuff that you don't like, and there's going to be stuff that you do. And the beauty of using something like OpenStax or LibreTexts or any of these other things I'm going to talk about is that you're not obligated to use only that, because it's free. So you can select what you like. Much of what's in OpenStax is also already been placed in a LibreText, because many instructors have found that OpenStax is not sufficient for their entire purposes. And so they have converted the OpenStax textbook to a LibreText and then remixed that. Remixing, I forgot to show you how to remix. Okay, sorry, back to LibreText for one more thing. So anywhere within LibreTexts, you will find this link at the top bar called the Remixer. The Remixer is beautiful. It is so great. What you are seeing now is a trial version. It is a demonstration mode of the Remixer, but you can always request an account by selecting the sign in button and request an account. Then you will have access to the Remixer and you can save what you do. The Remixer has created a set of empty shells for the book, etc. But basically what you can do is quickly, I will go into the human biology course once again, and I will open up the class that I was showing you before. And let's say I want to have this chapter 1. I really like their chapter 1. So I'm going to click on it and drag it over, and I'm going to put it right before this chapter 1. Because this is just an empty holder, if you will. And so then let's say I don't really like the chemistry chapter from this book. So I'm going to go into the regular introductory biology section, and I'm going to choose the OpenStax Chemistry of Life chapter. And I'm going to put that in right after the Nature and Process of Science. And so now I've created a book that is both composed of an authored book by another instructor and then also OpenStax. And I've remixed that, and it's totally allowed. It's so brilliant. And then this book, once you publish it or save it to the server, then you can import your own version into Canvas. Okay, sorry for the reversal of progress. Let's go back to where we were with OpenStax. All right, okay, the OpenStax is much more slick in terms of the website because they've got lots of money coming in from Bill and Melinda Gates and the Hewlett Foundation, etc. Their textbooks are high quality and they are peer reviewed. So there have been faculty from across the country who review this content before it is ever published. And then faculty who are using the books have the ability to submit errata or suggestions for updating the book. Revising and remixing isn't as easy as with LibreTexts, but once you put OpenStax into the LibreTexts platform, then it's much easier to revise and remix because you are allowed to revise and remix OpenStax. It's just not as easy on their platform as it is on LibreTexts. When you have an instructor account with OpenStax, you also have access to ancillary materials such as PowerPoints and test banks, etc. That said, that doesn't mean that students can't also find access to the OpenStax test banks. So use those with caution. Okay, so the way that we search for LibreTexts, and once again, I'm going to do a demo, is we go to the OpenStax library, and this is probably the easiest way to locate the subjects that are available. So if I select all, it's going to show me all of the textbooks arranged by subjects in here. And then within each one, once again, we'll go to the concepts of biology because that's the one I'm most familiar with. And there are options here for students and for users. You can view it online. You can download the OpenStax app. You can download a PDF, which is not as accessible as the web version, or you can order a print copy. It's like 24 bucks if a student really, really wants to have a print copy. You can also order print copies to have in the bookstore if you want students to be able to use their financial aid to access this. But again, we're focusing on ZTC, so forget the print copy. And once you're into the online viewing, you can see, whoops, I don't care about that. You can see the table of contents here and then each of the pages. So clicking on it, click through. Okay, so this is what the web version looks like. There is also the option of selecting a cartridge, an entire OpenStax course from Canvas Commons. So I'm going to open Canvas Commons in a new link here and show you how to locate the Commons cartridge, which you can then import into a course. So I'm going to do OpenStax OEI because those are the ones that are the most accessible versions. And we have an alarm going off over here. Hang on just a second. Excuse me. All right. So let's find, doesn't really matter. I'll select this psychology one. And then from Canvas Commons, you can import and download. So if I've located the OpenStax book on Canvas Commons, import, download, and then from your list of courses, find the one you want. Oh boy, I'm going to do the OpenStax one here. And then scroll to the bottom and select import into course. I'm not going to do that because I don't really need the psychology book in my OpenStax course, but that's the workflow. Then let's cancel out of here. Then when we go to our course after the import has finished, this is what you will see. Where did it go? There we go. So what the Canvas Commons OpenStax import has provided us is with a basic module structure, which is really fabulous because it gives you an overview page that is a sample, gives you the links to the sections of the chapter, and they will look very similar to the website. And the structure of the page looks very much like the way it's inserted is very much like the LibreTexts version of that. And then they also include in this import, you can also get PowerPoints. And so the PowerPoints have already been created. I can't guarantee that they're accessible, but at least you have access to all of the images from the textbook. So you can put them in your own PowerPoints if you choose to make PowerPoints using those images. And again, because now it's in Canvas, it's completely, you can, pick and choose which chapters and what order you want that content in, but you can't edit the pages. You can't edit these things that have been imported. That's where LibreTexts comes in. If you want to edit a page from OpenStax, you put it in LibreTexts first, use the remixer, edit, and then put it back in your class. Okay. Any questions about OpenStax? No questions about OpenStax. Okay. let's make sure that I have accessibility right. I didn't talk much about accessibility for OpenStax. They're pretty good. Their pages are the pages on the web and the ones that are developed when you use the Commons import, they're accessible. Sometimes if there's a complex image, the image may not necessarily have a very good alt text. Okay, so there's a question, how do you get the OpenStax text into LibreTexts to use the remixer? Great question. Chances are it's already there. So let's go back to the libraries and let's select math and let's do calculus and see what we've got. Okay, so there may actually be an OpenStax book already in here for your discipline. They're usually the OpenStax have already been imported for them. If they haven't, then I've never actually imported it, but I'm guessing that there's probably a way with the instructor account that I have never actually used. So Paige, can I get back to you on that particular part later?
Sure, but I
okay.
bet the text I'm planning to use is already in there.
Mm-hmm.
Since you said they mostly are, and this is a really popular OpenStax book, I bet it is in there.
Oh, which one is it? We can look right now.
It's the trigonometry and college algebra text.
Okay.
I would go to, yeah.
Trigonometry pre-calc. Let's go to algebra. College algebra, and trigonometry.
There it is, yeah.
There it is, it's already in there.
All right, thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem. Okay, cool. Any other questions about OpenStax before I move on to the next one? I want to make sure that I can get everything in here. Okay, so we've covered LibreTexts, we've covered OpenStax. There's a significant degree of overlap between the two. There is also another tool that is kind of like LibreTexts. It's called Pressbooks, and Pressbooks produces free textbooks. They're an offshoot of WordPress, which is a web page generator authoring program. And they author essentially electronic textbooks. Their textbooks are really nice. They're very nice, and they can have interactive components into them, and they operate very much like the OpenStax in that you have a menu on one side, and you have, your content appears, and you can always have a way to navigate from page to page without getting lost. And in fact, some of the OpenStax and some of the stuff that you will find on LibreText or OpenStax has already been converted into a Pressbook. So it's worth looking if you like the look and feel of a Pressbook more. The problem is that we can't actually author anything in Pressbooks unless we pay them. And so the instructor or the institution must pay for a license in order to have the authoring access. So therefore, for free, all we can do is access what they already have. So we can perform a search on their directory. Once again, I'll put the link in. I forgot to do OpenStax, but that one's pretty easy to find. So there's the directory for Pressbooks. And within Pressbooks, they have a very powerful search tool. So you can search for your subject. So, once again, search for human biology, and lots of options come up, but it'll actually show you if the book has been, is a remixed version. So somewhere in here, oh, it's not in human biology, but if I do like a regular biology one, I'll see the OpenStax one in there that has been converted into a Pressbook. And then once we go into, where's the one that I was looking for? Sorry, I'm flying all over here trying to find the one that I was going to show you guys, but I'm not seeing it. So regardless, so if we just click on one of these, you'll get a view of what a Pressbook looks like. So here is the Pressbook. If there is a downloadable option, if the author has decided to offer a download version, there will be a link here below the image of the textbook that says download. And then users will have the option to download a print PDF, which is not accessible, an electronic PDF, which is a little bit better, or an EPUB. And an EPUB is by far the most accessible version. We can't really display EPUBs on like Canvas though. So this would just be something that your students can access if they wanted to. They could download the EPUB and use an EPUB reader to do that. And you know, Andy, perhaps you can help me out here, but I think EPUBs can be read on Kindles or by screen readers that can be read aloud. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
Okay. So here's the interface for a Pressbooks. They all look basically the same. There is a panel on the left-hand side for accessing the contents. And then when you select it, it will open up that page in there. And the thing about many of these books is that there's often additional resources beyond just text. So in this case, they've got a TED Ed thing. And then sometimes there are interactive tools here where you can drag and drop and check your answers. And this sort of stuff is sometimes available. Oops, I didn't do so well. This sort of interactive tool is also available in the next one I'm going to talk about, which is Lumen Learning, but not so much in OpenStax or in LibreTexts. So that's one of the selling features of these. So because we don't have access to anything more than what is on the Pressbooks sites, the networks, or the universities that host these Pressbooks, we have limited options as far as sharing. As far as sharing goes, oops, where did I put it? I think I have it in here. Okay. So there are a few options for sharing a Pressbook. There is the option of just sharing a link to the page or a link to the chapter from a page. And if you want me to go through that, I can at the end of the workshop. The other option is to create something like what you saw for the OpenStax and the LibreText, which is having that page actually embedded in here. So the Pressbook page is actually embedded into your Canvas page. And so students don't have to leave Canvas to go and look at it. And this works pretty well with a mobile device. There's a lot of scrolling that happens. And so that's one of the only problems. I wouldn't put this particular page in my Canvas course the way it is, because some of the videos don't have accurate captions, and the interactives, one of them has some problems with being keyboard navigable. So while Pressbooks may have accessible text content, some of the stuff that professors that create these books put in there will not necessarily be accessible, like some of the interactives. So that's one of the problems with Pressbooks, is that it isn't as accessible as LibreText and OpenStax. And then I feel like I had one other example here of Pressbooks, how you can, oh no, this was a copy. This was just a different one. So yeah. So this is what you could do if you want to learn how to do an iframe. It's a pretty easy way to insert a web page into Canvas so students don't leave Canvas to read whatever your web stuff is. Okay, so Pressbooks is a pretty cool tool, but again, it has limitations and it's not exactly free. Well, it is free, but the really great tools like Canvas integration and the ability to author and remix, those all are only for faculty who are part of an institution that's paying for it. Or if you want to author your own book, it's $20. I believe it's only $20 only. So yeah, it's $20 per ebook, but you still don't get the Canvas integration. It's only if you pay $500 that you get the Canvas integration. So yeah, not exactly zero instructor cost. Okay, so moving right along.
I just want to say real quick, Jena and I have looked into trying to get a college-wide license, but at this point, it's not cost effective because we don't even know who would want to use it or how many people would want to use it, and it's a yearly subscription. So if at some point we had many faculty who were interested in using Pressbook as their publishing platform, we could potentially pursue that at the college level or even perhaps the district level, but right, we're just not there yet.
Yeah, thank you for mentioning that, Andy, because you'll notice at the top of each Pressbooks, there is an institution that is listed. So for example, this is Johnson and Wales University, but there's another consortium, Open Oregon, and I believe it's a lot of the community colleges and universities have kind of gone together to create a network of Pressbook publishing. So I don't know, maybe that was paid for by initiative at the state level, I'm not sure. So yeah, if there is an interest from a lot of faculty to do this, then yeah, it is possible that the district or the college could, you know, come up with money for that, but it would there would be some marketing and promotion that would need to happen for that to occur. Okay. So Lumen Learning is another ZTC-ish, open-ish option. And the thing that I like about Lumen Learning is that they have electronic textbooks and they include both copyrighted and openly licensed content. If you have your students pay $25, then you can integrate that right within Canvas, and there's all these other adaptive homework software tools that come along with it. But if you want it to be free for students, you still have access to the chapter pages, which are primarily OpenStax, but they also come from other sources, plus additional stuff like case studies, scenarios, interactive assessments, review questions. They're much better about using objectives and providing real life examples than OpenStax does. So that's one of the reasons why I would prefer Lumen Learning over OpenStax, but it's not as easy to actually get it into Canvas. It's the same basic issue. So if we go to their course search, you can see that they have a lot of content available when you use the search the catalog option. So there are lots of different books here, and the books can be, they've done the remixing for us essentially. So they have a bunch of subject area experts that they hire as consultants to create books. And these books, for example, I'm going to use once again the one that I'm most familiar with. These books are, I'm going to go, I don't want to stick on this page. I'm going to view the course contents. Don't complete the form unless you actually want your students to pay, because then they'll hound you with emails every other day. So I'm going to select view the course content, and that's going to take me to basically all of the pages of the book that are there. Not really the greatest table of contents, but let's say I want to talk about endocytosis and exocytosis. So once again, I'm going to open this in a new tab because I don't want to lose this page. The table of contents is very useful. Oh, that wasn't a really very good one. But yeah, so this is basically what it looks like. They've got learning outcomes at the top. They have images. This is all pretty accessible stuff. And then they also have some interactive questions that will check answers. And then at the very bottom of the page, it will tell you where the stuff came from. So this is the OpenStax textbook. And then if there's anything, they took the question from OpenStax and they made it so that it would automatically check the student's answer using this stuff called HP5. It's a special authoring tool that allows you to create interactive questions on the web. OpenStax doesn't use that, but Lumen does. So they just basically gussied up the OpenStax stuff and changed the format a little bit. So Lumen Learning for sharing purposes, let me go back to here. You can share it in the same way as with Pressbooks. So you can create the iframe here, like I did on this page, by using the link, using this link up here. You can embed it using an iframe, the HTML code for iframe. And again, I can show you guys how to do that. If you want to stick around after the meeting, I can show you how to do a workshop. I can show you how to do that. Or you can just provide the link. So the link would be, it would look something like this on the page, where you just have go read this page from Lumen Learning. And that's how I plan to use Lumen, is to just give links to the site rather than embedding it in the page. But that's just me. I just find it's a little bit easier to just provide links, because it would be an additional resource, not the primary reading, at least for me. Questions about Lumen? For those of you who are interested in being part of the Lumen project, they are nearly always recruiting for discipline experts because they want to grow their repository, and also because they want to sell their Waymaker platform. And so they will pay you to help them develop the content and the adaptive assignments for Waymaker. So if you're looking for a little extra cash, you can always go check the Lumen employment page and see if they're looking for someone in your discipline. Okay. I believe I've covered everything in here, right? Limitations are that you can't remix it. You can just use what they've got. Okay. So lastly, we have Khan Academy. You're probably familiar with the old-fashioned Khan Academy videos, the black screen, and the person writing using a stylus on the screen. Those videos are still there. But there are additional resources that the Khan Academy has really gotten into. Now, primarily we're talking K through 12, but there are some college level things in here. So if you're teaching a 100, 200, 300 level course, you may find that Khan Academy has something that could work for you. So there are some options for the Khan Academy. First, you can just access their courses and select a course from the list and preview it that way. So for example, I can go to the AP College Biology one, and then I can start off with this, and basically each section has a series of lessons. So each of these links corresponds to a little pop-out. It will have a video that plays, and it will have articles, and some of these articles even have like fun little questions that you can access within them. This one's not showing it, but anyway, lots of videos in here, as might be expected from the expert of instructional videos. Now, I'm not seeing an interactive, but there are interactive questions or assessments in here that you can use. Let's see if we can find. So here's a practice, you can complete them. So anyway, the advantage, besides the really nice layout and the sort of really building on fundamentals. So we're talking about introductory level stuff for the most part. The nice part about the Khan Academy is that there are lots of videos, lots of interactives. And what I found when I was reviewing stuff for the non-majors biology was that they did a really good job of explaining how it's relevant to real life, because the Khan Academy specializes in K-12 education, and they've recognized that providing context and engagement is really important for helping students learn. And so that's one of the nice things about the Khan Academy stuff, is it's not dry. It's not just fact, fact, fact. There's actual relevance there. Okay, so as far as sharing Khan Academy, you can share a link to one of these things. So if we want to share, well, this is probably not a good, here we go. So if I wanted to share this, I can just select this link here and link to, and use that as a link on a Canvas page, as I've shown you for the Pressbooks. So that's one option. It will automatically take students there. The other option is if you think you might be using a good amount of the Khan Academy stuff, you can create a teacher account, and you can log in using your Los Rios user account. You have to set it up once, I think. And then it will allow you to select the courses that you want to use. So I'm going to go to my account and select Learner Home. And then I can select the courses that I want to apply. So I've already selected AP College Biology, but I can add another course here. And then I can assign different assignments from within that course. And I can share. So let me go this course for a moment. No, that's not what I wanted to do. Let me go back. teacher dashboard. Here we go. So if I go to the teacher dashboard and I have a class, I can actually share this course with my students. I can assign it, right? And it'll say, you know, how many points essentially are associated with this. And then somewhere around in here, and I'm not seeing it right now, is a way to share students with your, oh, here it is. So if you go into students, you can share the class code. And when you share the class code with your students, then they can enroll in your Khan Academy class, and that, and then you can monitor their progress on those lessons and also see how they performed on the assessments. And if you wanted to, you could translate that into a score within your own Canvas course. That's optional. Khan Academy does have some stuff about, they do have some disclaimers about FERPA. So I haven't done a whole lot of investigation into their privacy policies for students. So if you're concerned about that, definitely look at their privacy and their terms of use policies before you go enrolling students in it. But based on what I understand, they're pretty good about that because they've got a lot of kids in Khan Academy taking these classes that you know, elementary school teachers are using for the student learning. Okay, let's see, accessibility, pretty good. Most of their stuff, all their videos are accurately captioned. Those little pop-outs are still navigable using a keyboard, and they are accessible otherwise. And again, the limitations are that you either have to use their platform for your course, or you have to link to the module or page that you want your students to access from Canvas, and then it'll take them out. The other kind of selling point perhaps for Khan Academy in terms of its use of the classroom feature is that students can download the app and they can complete the Khan Academy assignments using their mobile device, using their phones. And so that's kind of a cool selling point. All right, I want to make sure that Andy has opportunity to talk about the library resources. So I'm going to shut up now.
Thank you, Jena. That was so informative and amazing. I just put a link in the chat to this handout. I'm gonna share, this is the handout. I'm gonna share my screen just to the library page, and I'm just gonna go over a couple of the things that are on the handout. So if you are going back to the discussion that we had at the very beginning, the difference between ZTC and OER. So everything that Jena has showed us right now are open educational resources. You do want to pay attention to the license to see how you can use that resource, but those are all open. Now, things that you find in the library, some of our databases do pull in open content from journals, but even when they are open, they're not necessarily an OER, meaning that you could remix or redo something. You can definitely redistribute. But other things that aren't necessarily open, but you have access to through the library, you could still be using in your course. You just don't have the ability in many cases to actually edit that information. So things that, examples, there might be a chapter from an ebook, or there might be an academic journal article, or a newspaper article, or a video from one of our streaming media databases. And what I would recommend when you're looking for this content is to skip OneSearch. OneSearch is like the Google of the library. It's the search engine that's going to search all of our databases, but it's not very good. The algorithm isn't great. And so if you're looking for something very specific, instead of going into OneSearch, I would recommend going into the research databases and searching an individual database. So kind of the general databases are listed at the very top. And by general, we mean that lots of disciplines are covered within that database. But then we have broad categories over on the left-hand navigation. So if you are a history instructor, or if you are doing something in the sciences, you would do health and medicine. So I recommend going into an individual database. And when you click on one of these links, it's going to take you to databases within that category. And there's a very short description of what is included in the database. The handout, the second part of the handout talks about linking. So once you find something, you don't want to, I'm going to go into the ebook collection. And it's going to prompt me to log in because I'm off campus. When you find something and you decide that you want to share it with your students, I'm just going to pick a book that's on this front page. So if I wanted my students to read this book, I do not want to go up here and grab the URL. Anytime you're grabbing something from the database, you just don't want to grab the URL from the top menu. You want to look for something on the page that says permalink or persistent link, or there might be a share icon, and you want to get the link that starts with easyproxy.los Rios. That is going to be a consistent, persistent link so that if you are sharing that with your students, it's going to remain static no matter what. If you grab this link that's up at the top, it might work for a day and then it's going to break and it's not going to work anymore. So you want to make sure that you're grabbing the right link for your students. And I would recommend linking to content as opposed to downloading a chapter, a PDF chapter, and then uploading that into Canvas. And the reason for that is that the PDFs are often not accessible, but if they are reading online and you're sending them a link to the actual resource, it's easier for a screen reader to be able to navigate through that document. All of that information is on the handout, so I don't want to reiterate what you have that's right in front of you. Those are kind of the 2 points that I wanted to point out. And if we don't have something, if you're looking for a book and we don't have it, it's worth asking to see if we can get it, because there are